everyone, it's Professor Mackey. I wanted to give you an overview of what your third paper should look like. This is the evaluation essay. As you noticed, if you've looked at the student sample, it actually, the evaluation is of a different article. So you should assume, though, that your reader has not read your article, so you do want to introduce the text. So you'll notice here you have the MLA format, the student's name, the professor's name, the class, the day, the month, the year, and then for the heading, you're just going to put the evaluation of the article, title of the article. And then you'll notice in the intro, remember the introduction is a zoomed out snapshot of what you're going to be talking about. So you want to start off your introduction with a hook, and a hook can be a rhetorical question as it is here. And then later on in the intro, you're actually going to connect the hook to what the article is about. So you want to introduce the article, you want to introduce the author, first and last name in the introduction, and then also include the article. So for example, this student writes, these are the questions that author Janet Holmes seeks to answer in her article, Women Talk Too Much. So you can do something similar like that, similar to that for your particular article that you've been assigned, which is Students Can't Resist Multitasking. And then after you introduce the author and the article, you're going to maybe say a little bit more about the article. You want to summarize it briefly within a couple sentences. Remember, in your introduction, you're not going into details, so you shouldn't have any direct quotations from the article in your introduction. It should just really be the zoomed out general summary of what the article is about. And then the last sentence in your introduction is going to be your thesis statement. For this particular essay, your thesis is going to be about whether this article is persuasive or is not persuasive. You can also argue the middle ground. So you can say that it's partially persuasive, it's somewhat persuasive, somewhat convincing. Persuasive and convincing are just synonyms. So you're going to have a thesis that takes a stand on whether this article is persuasive in your opinion. Now, when you get into the body, you are not summarizing your task here is not to summarize the article. Your task here is to evaluate it. And an evaluation is a value judgment. So again, you're assessing whether the article is convincing or isn't. So every single body paragraph has to relate to that thesis. So now you'll notice in the student sample, the topic sentence is the first sentence in the body paragraph, and the topic sentence does relate to your overall thesis. So for example, this student writes, the structure and clarity of Holmes's article allows her to build her argument in a way that is highly persuasive to the reader. So again, if you think that the article is highly persuasive, you're going to want to mention that in your topic sentence, and then you're going to want to connect it to the point that that paragraph will be focusing on. So we see from the topic sentence that this student is going to be talking about the structure and clarity of the article. Now, within that body paragraph, you're going to start giving some concrete examples of why this article by Holmes was well structured and clear. So you'll notice this is all concrete examples and descriptions, and then for each body paragraph, you're going to want to have a direct quotation that proves your point and connects to the main idea of that paragraph. So you might set up a quotation like this. For example, after listing the proverbs, Holmes then uses a rhetorical question to draw her audience in, asking us, why is reality so different from the myth? To answer this question, we need to go beyond broad generalizations and look more carefully at the patterns identified. So she's following a delayed thesis format, and the student explains that the way that she's writing this is she's actually anticipating that students are going to be confused or have objections. So that's why she's saying we need to go deeper. So Holmes is able to make her thesis more persuasive because she has a clear structure. In the article that you guys are analyzing, the students students are multitasking that article, there's actually a pretty strong structure within that. So maybe you can pick up on some of those patterns within that particular article. So now you'll notice the next body paragraph, the topic sentence connects the main point of the old paragraph, the first body paragraph, to the main point of the second body paragraph. You can do this, you don't have to do this, but it's a nice transitional technique. So for example, this student writes, in addition to the good rhetorical choices that Holmes makes regarding structure, that was the previous point, she is also able to further support her argument by pointing to comprehensive evidence. So when we're talking about evidence, that's the examples that the writer provides, and I think all of you will probably have a paragraph on the evidence. And whether or not you think it's persuasive is really your call. So there's no right evaluation. The main thing you're doing here is just supporting your evaluation. So now each body paragraph goes on, focuses on a new point. Here's one objection to the that readers might have. So this is a counter argument. So even though this student thinks that this writer was persuasive, there are points that weren't persuasive. And maybe in high school you were told only argue one side, but in college you're going to be told that you can also argue another side if you see other points, as long as you work it in. So at the end you can say, even though she largely did a good job, she did have a couple flaws. So that can be your overall argument if you are standing the middle ground. So it really depends on what your thesis is going to be. So I'm not going to keep going over this because I think you get the point, and you can read the student sample on your own. But the main thing to remember is that your introduction, you start off with a hook, you introduce the author and the article, and then you give us some background, a background summary, and then you give us the thesis. And then for each body paragraph, you have to have a different reason that supports the thesis. And within each body paragraph, you have to have at least one or two direct quotations to prove your point. So I hope this video was helpful to you. And if you have any questions, or if you get stuck during your writing process, feel free to email me. Feel free, we can set up a Zoom conference. I'm here to help you guys. I know this is a more challenging paper, and I would have loved to have done it, gone over it in class with you all, but that's not where we're at right now. But just know that I'm here to help you. So please do reach out to me.